Hey there, welcome back to Fierce Encouragement. This is Mark Walker. Now, this is the podcast where we get real about what it takes to grow, to lead, and to show up in our own lives in the best way. And one of those things that I like to lead into is encouraging and helping ourselves and others and taking that mindset of fierce encouragement for yourself and others. Thanks for tuning in. Today, I wanted to talk about avoidance. You know, that thing we do when we ghost people or dodge hard questions and conversations, or maybe even those things that we keep putting off, trying to decide sometime in the future and not taking action on them. Because here's the real truth. Avoidance isn't just uncomfortable, it's really expensive for our lives. So if you want to know about the return on investment, let's look at what you're avoiding. Let's get really clear on that. It costs you time, energy, money, and ultimately it kind of even costs you that trust that you're trying to build in yourself and that faith in yourself. So in this episode, we're going to break that down, why we avoid, what it's really costing us. And we're going to look at a simple, powerful tool from Maxwell Maltz and his great ancient book in the self-help field called Psycho-Cybernetics. This will help you start taking action like that person or that version of yourself that wants to face challenges instead of running from them or just kind of hiding out. And trust me, I'm right there with you. As I went and created this podcast, I've been avoiding some stuff too. So more on that in a minute, but let's get right into it. So part one, we want to talk about the true cost of avoidance in our lives. So let's start here. What do you think your avoidance really costs you? What do you think your hesitation, your procrastination, what do you think that's really costing you on average in your year as you kind of look back at the last year or even the last few months? I want to hit you with some numbers that I found out while researching this because I don't think we realize how big this is in our lives. Research has shown that the average person spends around 55 days a year procrastinating. Now, that's from Joseph Ferrari. He is a professor at DePaul University and has investigated scientifically what procrastination costs us. And this is one of the data points that he came up with. The average person spends around 55 days a year procrastinating. That's just nuts. And I guess as I look at that number, I reflect, that I probably am in that average in many cases, so I need to get a little bit better at that. And if we're in business, if we're in our entrepreneurial journey, avoidance and procrastination can cost us over $10,000 per employee per year. So again, if you're in business, if you're a manager, if you're trying to help people kind of move through tasks and get some projects done, and as a recovering project manager, I know how that is. To get people moving is difficult. But that avoidance, that procrastination in companies can cost you over $10,000 per year per employee in lost productivity. Now, that comes from Pierce Steele, who's a writer. Look him up. He's a great intellectual writer on avoidance and procrastination and the true cost. And finally, we can ask ourselves maybe the most important question about avoidance. Well, it fuels and it kind of creates this continuing negative loop of anxiety, depression, and it really destroys our inner confidence. So every time we avoid a hard thing, whether it's a conversation, a decision, a project, we're really telling our brain and our body that we can't handle this life. And over time, that belief starts to sink in and set in. Now, here is where I got to be real honest. I am definitely not above this because right now for me, it's financial discipline. I have been really good at avoiding some tough conversations and some deep work with myself about how I'm handling money and how I'm spending it and how I'm investing in my own business and in my own education. And honestly, what I'm holding back on because I don't want to face it. Every time I avoid it, my anxiety creeps up, my confidence dips, I start feeling like a fraud. And here I am, a coach, helping other people face their stuff, but I'm not facing mine. So it's pretty humbling. So if you've got that thing that you're avoiding, I see you, I hear you, I am you. And here's our first reflection together. And something I did right before the podcast, I want you to pause and write it down. if you have the chance to, pause and write it down. Where in your life are you avoiding something important? What's the real cost of not handling it? Is it those 55 days? Is it that money and lack of productivity in your job? Take a second, write that down. And moving on to part 2, and inviting you in to thinking about maybe why we avoid. Why do we avoid? Why do we procrastinate? I want to break it down really simply from the research I gathered and some of the tools that I want to just share with you and the tools that I'm working with. We go into a self-protection mode. So when our brain thinks if we avoid it, it keeps us safe. And that safety can come at the expense of our own peace and that inner trust that we talked about just before, but also monetarily, also time-wise. When we go into self-protection mode, it tries to keep us safe. So I guess there's a really important lesson here for me is not to hate yourself for procrastinating. You're not to pile on to yourself and create more judgment because you're in a self-protection mode. Try to be compassionate. Try to encourage yourself when you go through this and trying to learn about yourself. That's the only way forward. It also, another point on this, it also conflicts with our identity that we're trying to build, or that kind of beingness, that moment-to-moment awareness and that beingness, that identity. If we don't see ourselves as someone who can handle hard stuff, we just don't. We don't kind of take those roles or identities that we want to be more like as real. We just start to see ourselves as somebody who can't show up. And then, of course, that leads us into the last point, the fear of the unknown. What if you do say something and it blows up? What if you do make a move or take action and then later regret it? But I think this is where Darren Donnelly, and a great quote from him, just drops a bomb on that mindset of fear of unknown. And it's this, and it's something, again, that kind of resonated with me as I was doing some self-coaching and journaling today. We cannot consistently perform in a way that is inconsistent with your self-image. This means you can't outperform your self-image, at least not for very long. In the long run, whatever you believe about yourself becomes reality. That's Darren Donnelly, just a big quote. And it basically says we can't outrun our self-image. We might be successful for a little bit, but when we aren't working on the things we're helping others with, or the ways that we want to show up with those identities, we cannot hold ourselves accountable to showing up with a good result when our self-image is low. Just let that sink in. If you believe you're someone who avoids something, you'll keep avoiding. And if you believe you're someone who faces things with more courage and accountability, you'll start acting more like that, even when it's scary, even when it sucks. So what do we do about that? What do we do about that? Moving on to part 3, I wanted to talk about this tool, this future self tool I call the act as if principle. So you might have heard this if you're a personal development junkie like me, but we act as if, and we think of our future self using this tool. So this is straight from Psycho-Cybernetics and Maxwell Maltz's book. Act as if visualization. So let's do this together right now. If it's money for you like it is for me, or just a conversation or a choice you're scared of, I want you to close your eyes if you can right now and just focus inward for a breath. Take a moment or two and picture yourself 6 months from now. Imagine you've handled that one thing you want to work on. You're on top of it. Imagine yourself on top of it and succeeding. Imagine you took action on it. You didn't avoid it. So what's different for you? How do you talk? How do you walk? How do you feel when you wake up? What's in your bank account? Or what's off your mind? Take a deep breath. Really feel that version of you for a moment. And whenever you're ready, take your time, but just think about one action you can take in the next 24 hours to become and embody that person. What's one action you can take in the next day to become that person? Give yourself that day limit. Don't put it off till next week. Write it down. Now, for me, it is sitting down today and going through my budget without distraction for my half-hour window. What's yours? Because here's a real truth, and this comes from Maxwell Maltz in his book. And here's the quote: "Within you right now is the power to do things you never dreamed possible." Ending quote. We don't know what that power is until we act. We don't know until we schedule that time, and we don't know until we take that next step in the next 24 hours. So really make a commitment to that. To kind of put a bow tie on this and to give you one last piece and a reminder from me as a coach is that it's really difficult to break avoidance and procrastination if we're in a fight or flight kind of mindset. Maybe we lost a job. Maybe we're struggling today with loss or some other big things. But I'd invite you right now with me as we close out to pause. And as I finish up, I just want you to take 3 slow breaths with me. I want you to feel your feet on the floor for a moment. I want you to feel the chair or the ground holding you up. And I want you to notice that you are safe. No matter what it is, you can handle it. One breath at a time, we can step forward together into these challenges of avoidance and procrastination. Thank you for your time today. This has been Fierce Encouragement. And hey, if this is hitting home for you, if you're tired of that avoidance and that, holding back in certain areas and you're ready to face what really matters in your life, I would love to connect. I'm a performance life coach and a meditation teacher and guide. I work with people who are ready to build that clarity and that fierce confidence and to stop living in avoidance mode. Truly, it's something I've struggled with and it's something I'm still working with. We never truly arrive. We just continue to get better and master more parts of it. So I would love to hear from you. My link to my application is in the show notes. Please reach out there. I personally review every application, so if you think we're a good fit, I'll reach out to you with a free strategy session and we can start to explore what this could look like for you. So check out the link in the show notes and listen, whether you're or not you reach out, I hope you take that one thing you wrote down in the next 24 hours. Take action on it. Be the person that shows up. You are stronger than you think you are. So this has been Mark from Fierce Encouragement. All right, till next time, have a good night, have a good day, and take care of yourself.